All right, we are doing this thing called podcasting that all the kids are doing nowadays. I have in the virtual building Mr. Hal Savar, who is also the human jukebox. So thank you for coming on to the show. And what's up, my friend? How's it going?
I'm great. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Glad to be here.
I'm excited to hear all of your stories after I saw you reached out and browsing through the profile. You've been seems like to have a crazy, crazy story, and I do appreciate that guitar background as well.
Thank you. You went
And
to my messy bed.
hey, it builds character, right?
You know.
Okay, so always in the beginning, I want to build context for all of the listeners as well as myself. So let's hear the backstory of Mr. Hal Savar, how you, and I say childhood, how you ended up in Vegas, and leading up to becoming the titled human jukebox in the newspapers.
Okay. So my family's from Philly, Philadelphia, and New Jersey, and the Northeast. And my parents were the only two out of their siblings and stuff that left town. So like still all of my cousins and uncles and aunts, everybody lives back in the Northeast. But kind of the small version of the story is the reason why my parents moved out of town was because my dad and my mom started a company right after I was born that patented the electronic credit card processing system. So it was like before them, it was just the paper thing. And they were the first people to do it with like computers and have like the digital. And that's a big deal, obviously. So they made some bank and we moved to Northern Virginia when I was like 3 or 4. And it was good for a minute. And my little brother was born. And shortly after that, my parents, their business kind of went south and their marriage went south. So we were kind of, it was me and my brother living with my single mom for a while. And we didn't have like a lot of money. We were kind of broke. And I had to switch schools right in the middle of 5th grade, which is weird, right? Like winter break, and then you go to school, and then you come back, and you're in a different school. And then my mom met a guy who was in the Air Force. He was a lawyer, Air Force lawyer. And they got married when I was about 13. And right after they got married, we started being transferred. So it was like every 3 or 4 years. So we moved from Northern Virginia to Dayton, Ohio. And we were in Dayton, Ohio until I was junior in high school. And right before my senior year, we moved that summer from Ohio to Framingham, Massachusetts, which is like just outside of Boston. And it was like culture shock because when we lived in Ohio, I'm Jewish, and we used to joke around that my house was like the most ethnic. We were like the ethnic side of the neighborhood. Like people just never met Jewish people. They didn't know anything. Like it wasn't in their wheelhouse, Like, and then when we moved to Massachusetts, the school that I went to had 58 different languages spoken there, and they call Framingham Little Brazil because there are so many Portuguese-speaking people that live in that area. In fact, like I had never seen girls who weren't like white, blonde hair, blue-eyed girls. It was so crazy. It was like I remember like the first week of school, there was a group of these Portuguese girls who were like hanging out they just like chilling like in an area, and I walked by and I was convinced that those girls were not my age. I was like, those are like adult women pretending to be my age. I was like, there's no way those girls. And I found out later some of them were younger than me, which was like, just crazy. So it was pretty awesome. But when I was a little kid, so this is where the music thing comes into play. When I was really little, I saw Elvis on TV. And I'm really little, like 2 years old, 3 years old, and I was obsessed. Like I knew, like whatever that was, that's what I wanted to do, And my dad who was like a normal father, who was like realized I was interested, he started buying all these Elvis like videos and tapes and books. And so by the time I was about 5 or 6, I'm like a little Elvis impersonator. And I was singing and shaking around and stuff at all these like national talent shows. And I continued to do that for a long time. And as we would move from like place to place, I would just do my little Elvis impersonating thing in that new area. And it was getting more, it was just getting more. I was doing more of it and getting more into it, like as I was getting older, to the point where I think like it was a little concerning. My parents were kind of like, what is going on? Because you're like, how's my child being an Elvis impersonator? Like, what is going on? But I was obsessed with Elvis and like learning as much as I could about him. And that started bringing me to learn about kind of like his influences musically. So I had a really cool, I think a really cool education on music, because I started from very like early on. I was like, which is weird. Most kids just listen to what's on the radio, but I was like, oh, what was he interested in that created like rock and roll, you know? So I started listening to like old gospel music and old country and old blues. And then that led me into like, you know, 50s rock and roll stuff other than Elvis, which led into like the Beatles and when Led Zeppelin and like classic rock and, you know, like all of these like amazing like Rolling Stones and like then singer-songwriters like James Taylor and like, and I just was like soaking it up like a sponge, right? But I didn't have any musical ability except shaking around and singing with that crazy like Elvis voice. So when I was about 16, we were living in Ohio, and my mom said, you know, we got to start talking about college, like what you want to do with your life. And I stuck to the same thing since kindergarten. Oh, I want to be a rock star. You know, when everybody would ask, oh, rock star, performer, musician, rock star. And my mom said, sweetheart, like, I love you, but she said, you don't have any musical ability. You don't write music. You don't play an instrument. So you might want to like consider a backup. And I said, no, Mom, if I have a fallback, then I'm going to fall back because I used to be like that. And we sort of left it at that for the time being. And when that was going on, I wanted to take guitar lessons, but my mom refused to pay for them because, you know, when you're a kid, like they offer like, oh, you play violin in the 4th grade. So I did it. I played viola in the 4th grade. And then I quit to play the trumpet in 5th grade because it was shiny. And you know, like in the middle of 5th grade, we moved. So all these kids were like way ahead of me. They were playing like pretty decently. And I could play like, you know, like hot crust buns, like dun, dun, dun. And it sounded like somebody kicking a duck over and over. It wasn't that good. But yeah, so she didn't want to get me guitar lessons because she didn't want me to quit, you know? But my mom played guitar when I was like a baby. So I got her like old guitar out of the basement and I dusted it off and I started teaching myself how to play. When nobody was around, like just in my room. And that sounds weird, but basically like I sort of just started figuring it out on my own. I bought a book of like 1950s songs, like rockabilly music and oldies. And in the songbook, it had like chord diagrams, like over like what, you know, parts of the song. So just be like a couple dots and you could see like where to put your fingers. So I was like, oh, okay, so that's the C chord. And I sort of like figured it out. And I started writing songs. Like, so I never slept very good. So I'd be up like in the middle of the night writing songs. And one night at like 2:00 in the morning, I was playing like one of the first songs that I wrote. And my mom like banged on the door and she was like, she said, turn your radio off and go to bed. It's 2:00 in the morning. And I started laughing because I was like, it's not the radio, that's me. Like, so I was like, oh, I must be on to something, you know? And then, so we moved to Massachusetts right before my senior year of high school. And it was weird being like the new kid and being a senior. But I made friends fast, and I started because I was new and I didn't have an outlet. It wasn't like I could be like join a sports team. Everything was like all established already. I started really like getting into playing music and writing songs. And sometimes I'd take the guitar with me to school, and people probably thought I was like this weird kid because I would just sort of like sit in like the quad, like play guitar like by myself. But it was cool because I guess it did help me make friends. It was like a conversation starter. And then by the end of the year, I was in a classic rock cover band. And I didn't feel like there was enough places for me to perform because I was a teenager. So I started creating spots where we could play. So I went to the principal and said, can we do a charity show? He's like, sure, if you want to set it up. So I set up like a big charity show with a couple other bands, and they let us use, they were built in like the 1960s, the school. So it had like this huge theater, and it was like really cool, like big stage and lights and stuff. So we did that, and we raised a bunch of money. And actually, the following year, I came back and did it again. And I didn't go to school there anymore. Like I graduated, but come back and tried to continue it. But I ended up moving after that. So I couldn't keep it going. I think that was it, just those 2 years. But yeah, it was really cool. It was really fun. And then I guess the short version of this is that my stepfather found out we were being transferred again, this time to Vegas. I had never been out on the West Coast before, and I hadn't sang like Elvis or anything since I was about 16. Once I picked up a guitar, the Elvis thing was over, It's funny though, because I've been doing like live stream events, and there are people who remember me from school that only remember that are just like, so they see what I do now and they're like, whoa, like, because they're expecting like Riva Las Vegas. It's so funny. But so my father lived in Florida at the time, and I didn't know what to do. I went to community college for a little bit, and I really wanted to be playing music. So even though I had a girlfriend and two really great friends that were playing music together. See, this is the thing, like anybody who's writing songs, and especially when you first start out, you feel yourself like, wow, like how did this even happen? Like, I can't believe I did this. But if you don't have people around you who sort of positively fuel that, it could end real easily because you don't know how to gauge where your success is, right? So I had two amazing friends that were like, one was a lead guitarist and one was a bass player. So we'd sit in the living room and I'd be like, hey guys, check this out. And they'd be like, oh yeah. And they would just add parts to it. And all of a sudden we were creating like more of a song, and it was an amazing way to start writing music, to have that kind of support. And so I started feeling real confident about my music. And then, but I didn't know what to do with it. And in Boston, we couldn't find a lot of places to play when you were underage. And I was miserable in college, and I didn't know what to do. And so I moved in with my dad in Florida. I packed up my car, I moved to Florida, and on the way there, I tried to set up spots where I could play. So I played all these random weird shows. Like one time I showed up and there was like, they said, oh yeah, like we don't have a PA here. We thought we told you that. And it was in a place where, because I used to live in Virginia and stuff like that. So I actually had a crowd of people show up to see me play there. So I was supposed to play. There's like, 60 people that showed up, and there's no PA. So I don't have anything, and it's like 10 o'clock at night. So I literally like stood on a table and just sang and played guitar as loud as I could. It's so funny. And but I moved to Florida. I lived there for a minute with my dad, and I worked for his company, and I played music at this like cigar bar, and I kept writing, but it was kind of lonely out there because the people that I worked with were a lot older than me, and it wasn't like I was in school or anything to meet friends. So eventually, like they convinced me, my best friends convinced me to come back to Boston. So I went back to Boston, and right after I got there, my family found out we were being transferred to Vegas, like right after I moved back. So went to Vegas with the family, and I started when I first moved here. This was like 18 years ago. Oh my god, I'm so old.
The landscape must have been so much different. There's no social media. Everything's pretty much word of mouth and referral at that point.
It was so different, and I had, when you'd go into a casino, like you couldn't walk like 100 feet in any direction without hitting another live stage. And it was weird because you could see the best talent in the entire world. And then you walk 100 feet in the other direction and be like the worst thing you've ever seen.
It's all about balance, right?
It was like, yeah, there's like no quality control. It was just like, we have all these venues. We just want live bands, like cover bands. They were all, and there was a lot of like dance bands. They were all really similar. They would they would all wear the same color. So the whole band would be wearing white, or they'd all be wearing red. Depending on the night, you would go. And then you'd see them, they had like choreographed moves. And they had like, let's say if you really liked the band and you followed them, they would do in the same sets. Like you would know, like, oh, here's these 12 songs in this order for the first 45 minutes or whatever. You know what they're going to do next and the jokes and everything.
Yeah, so there was no real originality. It was very, very stale after one time. There was no reason to really go back to him unless it was your friend, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. And it was very cookie cutter. Like a lot of the bands were similar, but of course, like talent wise, it wasn't. You'd see like, oh wow, they're incredible, and they're playing, like I don't know. You'd hear a lot of bands playing like what was popular then, like Gwen Stefani, Banana. Remember that song? You'd hear every band like do that song, and some would be awful and some would be like, wow, this is really good, but pretty much same thing, cookie cutter, but it was awesome. But I didn't want to play cover music. I just would enjoy going out and listening and stuff like that. And so I lived here for a year or two, and then I was pushing my original music pretty hard. And I met a guy who, it's a weird story, but I was helping his stepdaughter. She was singing at a synagogue, actually. And she's a cantor now at Ner Tamid. And we were they hired me to do a service with her, like a special like Friday night service with guitar and stuff like that. So we were working on the songs, and I told her, I was like, yeah, I have original music. She was like, oh, let me hear it. So I played a couple songs for her. And her ex-stepfather, at the time, he was in the other room, and he like muted the TV. And he came in the room afterwards, and he said, I'm really like picky about like the music I like. And he was like, I'm only a fan of like John Mellencamp. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And he was like, but I think I'm a fan of you too. And I was like, wow, that's flattering. And he was like, look, I want to manage you. He was like, I don't know anything about managing you, but I know about business. He was like, so you don't even have to sign anything until you feel like it's right, and just see what I can do for you. But are you interested? I was like 21, 22 years old. I was like, yes, I'm interested. Let's do this. So he basically invested in getting recording my first album. And I met a guy who was the founding member of Kool and the Gang just by happenstance. Actually, what happened was I was singing at Hillel over at UNLV, and they got a phone call from somebody that said like, hey, like this girl, she's doing an album and she wants people to do like different prayers and like overlap them on top of each other. Like, can you just send somebody over who could like do like a Jewish prayer? And they thought of me because I play guitar and stuff all the time. So I was like, cool, yeah, I'd love to do that. So I went over to this guy's studio, and it turns out he was the founding member of Kool and the Gang. And he like loved me, and he was a great guy. And he started just he was kind of like, you know, like taking me under his wing a little bit and introducing me to people who are in the industry and people I had no business meeting or talking to, just to see what was out there. And so he sort of helped produce my first album. And what was cool about my first album was my best friends from Boston, the guitar player and bass player, they left school and they moved to Vegas and to record that album with me. And there was a lot of things, like that was amazing of them, because now looking back on it, there were a lot of things that potentially they could have said no to, because we were a band in Boston. We were called Urban Eclipse. We were a band, like a group, right? But now, for 2 years, I've been pushing my original music as Hal Savar, like my own stuff. So they had to come to Vegas and be my backup band. Right?
Hal Savar and friends.
Yeah. So you could imagine how they felt, probably, you know, and it was incredible that they did that. But it was nice. There was like a plan. So they came out here and we recorded and we lived together. And man, listening to like my songs the first time after we recorded them, like even on the car, was like, whoa, like, wow, you know, just to hear something complete.
Yeah, I have a quick question. So from that whole story, it sounds like there's a few things that were consistent in your life, which was change, adaptability, and your persistence to eventually become, you know, an artist. And do those three traits echo in your first album?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like I wrote, so you know, there's this thing like for a lot of Jewish kids back east. I don't know if they do it here. Probably. It's like this. It's a big camp, like a camp thing, you know. And I went to a camp not as like a camper, but when I was older as like a song leader. So they hired me to like play at camps and stuff. And that was around the time I was writing my first songs. And at first I wrote this song called Rockstar, and it was kind of like a pep talk, like very positive about like getting out there and like making it happen, you know? And I used to play that at camp for all like the girls, because they'd be like, ooh, yeah, here we go. This is my one song. But yeah, I think if you listen to that, it's funny because there's no rhyme or reason why those songs are in that order, or those were the songs that are on the album. It's just kind of like, here it is, you know, like, but yeah, definitely you can feel, especially with that first song, it's very much like, it's all about all those things, change and sticking to it, you know, like just having blinders. I think that's the only way to be successful, you know? But my story takes a weird turn after this. that's why I seem weird about the way I'm answering that question.
All right, I'm buckled up.
Well, so we started playing. We were playing all the time. We were playing shows. I won an award at the New York Music and Film Festival. They had a thing out here at the Palms Casino. So I ended up winning like best male up and coming pop rock album vocalist and stuff.
Where was the first venue that you played at in Vegas?
The first venue that I played at in Vegas was a bar that is not there anymore. And it was called Hammersmiths, I think.
Well,
It was like,
if there's anyone in Vegas that was around back then,
I
comment
think
below.
pretty sure it's gone. I played a slew of places that went out of business. It actually started becoming a joke with my family. Like, play there, and then I'd not play there, and the place would go out of business.
So where was your first strip venue then?
Strip venue. Oh, okay. So okay. So the band, we go out of town, we go on this little tour from Boston down to Florida, just hit a bunch of places. It's amazing. I get to do what I love to do. I'm sleeping on people's couches. I'm loving it. During that time period, my manager hurt his back, and he started taking Vicodin, and he kind of got hooked on Vicodin, and it changed his entire personality. He was like a completely different dude, you know? So while he was dealing with all that, we come back to Vegas, and I'm like ready to go. Like, let's do this. What's the next step? The next step is like, let's get my stuff to like a label so we can get some distribution and I can rise above playing little dumpy places. And manager at the time was like, I don't know what I can do to help you. He was like, I think I've kind of run my course. And he sort of like ripped up the contract and said, I'm sorry, like there's nothing I can do anymore. And I didn't know what to do. So my friends who were in the band moved back to Boston because there's no plan. And I couldn't afford to live in my apartment anymore because my roommates were gone. So I moved back in with my mom. And at that time, I didn't know what to do. And I sort of was like floating, you know? So embarrassing. Anyway, one of the last things that my ex-manager did was set me up with a gig in Vegas at the Westin Casuarina Hotel. So it was basically like Flamingo and what is Koval, kind of like Flamingo and Koval.
Okay, yeah, so it's like a little bit hidden back there.
Yeah, it's still there. It was cool. They put my name like on the marquee, and they wanted me there. It was 5 days a week, and it was from 11 p.m. Yeah, 11 p.m. to 4 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, that's a 4.5 hours, 5 hour set.
Yeah, which I couldn't do that. I could only play original music. So, I don't know what they were thinking at the time and what that was about or how that deal came to be, but literally, like, I started to learn a couple cover songs, and I would just repeat my sets. So every hour was the same, basically, just mixed up different music.
So you're just like those bands that you'd seen when you'd first come to Vegas.
Except much worse. Like, much worse. I can't believe anybody would sit through that, you know? And then it got so bad that I was trying to figure out, I turned one night into like an open mic night and just would let other people get up there and play. It was super stressful and weird. And I got sick after like the second week. I had like a temperature and I was falling asleep on stage at like 2 o'clock in the morning. Like it was horrible. But my name was on the marquee.
It's all that mattered back then. That was huge advertisement.
I was like, wow. So after that, I didn't know what to do. I almost quit music because I felt like there had been a plan and there were people who were helping me along the way since I started, and now I had nothing. So, and it was weird. I'm like 23 years old with like no plan, nothing. I'm living with my mom. Like I'm not making any money. I don't have a job. So I got a day job, and it was doing like timeshare, like telemarketing. And I was miserable. And I started going to the Stardust Hotel, had karaoke 3 days a week, but it was like super karaoke. Like you go up on stage in like the lounge So it was like you go behind the bar up on this stage. There'd be like two cute girl go-go dancers dancing. And then at the end of the night, they would vote. And whoever was the best male singer of the night, they'd give $100 to. And the best female singer of the night, they give $100 to. So I was like, at first I was like, oh, I'm a ringer. People won't know that I can sing that good. So I'll just go in there and chill. And what ended up happening was this weird year where I would just hang out at the Stardust Hotel 3 days a week. I would sing karaoke. I would sing one song and just drink and hang out with people, like old school Vegas people, you know, and the go-go dancers. And that was like my life for a year. And they ended up having like a kind of like a poor man's American Idol show called Sensations. And I was on there. I got second place. I didn't win. I came this close. And then they brought me back to be a judge the next year. It's really weird. It was really fun experience though. But during that time, I would just try whatever song. I literally, at one point, I would just have people picking songs for me to sing. I wouldn't even know what it was. And I would just go up there and like, all of a sudden, I realized like, I could kind of sing like a lot of music, you know? So during that period of time, as that sort of came to an end, that era, I had that Amir Bayan, the guy from Kool and the Gang, he called me up one night and said, hey, do you have a nice suit? Yeah, I do. And he was like, well, I'm going to have a limo pick you up. And he was like, we're going to have dinner with a friend of mine. And I just want you to be ready, okay? Can you be ready by like 7 or 8 o'clock? I said, sure. So we go out to dinner, and I don't want to name drop, but it was like a big deal, somebody big deal in the industry. And they said to me, why don't you play cover songs? And I was like, because I'm an artist. And they said, well, there's nothing wrong with being a musician. And I'm a kid, I don't know what that means. I'm like, what are you talking about? And they said, well, he said, you know, every legendary performer in the music business started out playing covers and learning to do it their way. He said, you know, like the Beatles, Ray Charles, Stevie Wonder, Michael Jackson. He said, you know, like these none of them played their own music. He said they all just got the experience learning how to take a cover song and make it their own and perform in front of a crowd. And then he said they all started making their own music after they were like found. He was like, your boy Elvis, he was like, he was a cover musician his whole career. That was his whole thing. Like, they're like, yeah, I guess that's true. Like Frank Sinatra, the same thing, you know? So I started looking around, and Vegas was still very much like lounge bands, but they were making so much money, you know, and they were working like crazy. You know, like they would book out like months and months and months in advance. Like they would have like almost their whole year solid, like 6 days a week at different venues. And it was like a blur, you know what I mean? Like almost the same thing every show. Just, hey, Wednesday night is purple night. Everybody remember to wear your purple. Like, you know, like, and they would, so I wasn't sure that I wanted to do that necessarily. So I was kind of looking for like where I could be different. And I wandered into Dueling Piano Bar.
Yeah, it's still around too. Still around.
Yep. And as a broke musician, I was pretty much like, whoa, look at all those tips. You know, like, what they were doing was like, hey, so-and-so over here wants me to play Don't Stop Believing, $20. They start playing, do, 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 do. And then the other piano player would be like, whoa, hold on. I just got $40 for Living on a Prayer. And then the other guy would stop. He wouldn't even play the song, and the other guy would start playing Living on a Prayer.
So it was like a bidding war almost.
Yeah. And I was like, man, and these people are just throwing money. And I was like, I have none of that money. I wonder if you can do that with guitars. I was like, I could probably do that, except I don't know any cover songs really. So I got myself a gig at this place. It's not there anymore. It's called Norma Jeans. It was on like Decatur and pretty much like Spring Mountain Road.
That name just sounds like it's from the 50s.
It does. It was. The place was like. It was like 2 pool tables, a bar, and then like a couple sofas.
It's like a real dive bar.
Real dive bar. Like, so they gave me a gig there, and basically they were like, "Yeah, you can play here, and you can take all the tips you want, and we'll give you like 10% of whatever the bar makes for the night."
Cha-ching.
Sounds good in theory, but the bar was never full. So it was, at the end of the night, they'd hand me like $3 and be like, "Here you go." I'd be like, "Yay, my $3." So what I started doing was I would open up a guitar case and just put it in front of me and say, "Okay, whatever you guys want to hear, throw $1 at me or whatever, and I'll give it a shot. Even if I don't know it, I'll give it a shot. I'll see if I can do it." So people would ask for something, and I'd be like, "Yeah, I heard that song," and I kind of like fiddle around on my guitar for a second, and then I figure it out close enough, and I start playing the song, and people go nuts. Like all of a sudden, like, "How the heck are you doing that?" I didn't even know how I was doing it, and I started learning a bunch of songs. So, but I didn't know a lot of cover songs. I had a handful of them, right? But now I was starting to get gigs, like they weren't really paid. Sometimes they'd give me like a free sandwich or something. But
It's all about exposure at that point.
Yeah, it was exciting. I was getting gigs. So while all that was happening, I had a really good friend who was a guitar player singer that I knew from playing open mic nights. And open mic nights were cool because they give you 3 songs or 15 minutes, and you could play your original music and, or covers. But I liked it because I could play my own stuff, and people sort of listened. That was cool. And that was at like the Fiesta Henderson and Money Plays, which was on Flamingo and Decatur, kind of. And the Green Valley Ranch had a place called the Whiskey Bar, which was really cool. And they had an open mic there, which was really cool. And so I met this guy there, and he was a guitar player singer. And he had actually moved back to Washington State. So I called him up and was like, "Hey, man, you want to be in my band?" He was like, "What?" And I kind of told him I wanted to do like a dueling piano thing with guitars, but maybe not dueling. And I needed somebody who knew a lot more covers than I did. And he was like, "All right, we'll see," because he was kind of not happy at the time out there. So he moved to Vegas. We got a place and immediately started playing all these venues. And we'd harmonize together. And it started to become more of like a live jukebox than dueling guitars. People would request songs, and we'd play like our versions of those songs. Sometimes we like weird mixes, and we were just trying to do fun things with the music, and people started like following us around, like just the 2 of us. And I had another friend back in Boston, Massachusetts. His name was Carl, and Carl was like an incredible guitar player, lead guitarist, singer. And when we were in high school together, he was like good looking kid, really good at soccer, really good at art. He was like super smart. He got like a full ride to I think Brown University. He was like you'd only meet one of those guys every once in a while. That was like disgusting how good they were at everything. But he was also like the best guitar player that I knew, like lead guitarist. He was amazing, and he could sing and stuff. So he was graduating from college, and I was like, "Why don't you come out to Vegas and be in our band?" And I was like, Jeremiah was like, "Are we joking? 3 guitar player singers in a band?" He was like, "Nobody wants that." And also he was like, "You're going to kick me out by getting this guy." And I was like, no, he plays electric guitar. Like, so it didn't make any sense, but he came out here, and the 3 of us were harmonizing together. And now we had like a lead guitarist, and he brought his own covers to the band that we could start doing. We started playing bigger and bigger venues. And then I brought in a drummer who could also sing. So what happened was, at that point, we started playing like Irish pubs. We were at McMullen's Irish Pub next to the Orleans Hotel every Friday night. And we did that for about almost 3 years. And then on Saturday nights, we were at the Old Dubliner Irish Pub at Lake Las Vegas. And we did that for 3 years too. That's kind of like where we started. And then during the week, we started playing at Mickey Finn's and Hennessy's on Fremont Street. So that was like our schedule. And people were following us around. And we would play 4 hours straight with no breaks. Just all request music, because everybody in the band was a singer. So depending on the request and what was going on, if you had to go to the bathroom or something, you could always walk away for like 15 minutes and come back. There'd be 3 other guys there to, pick up the slack. So they were like these epic, crazy shows where 4 hours of people dancing and requesting songs. So that was like a whole era within itself. And what was weird while that was going on was like, I was still writing music, but not playing my original stuff at all, because I was making money playing music and being a rock star every night. Where people were like, "We love you,"
Oh, it's always what you wanted ever since you're 3 years old.
It's weird, right? But it's weird because you're kind of like, you're still just playing to drunk people who don't know who you are, really, But I did that for a while. And then the band members started being pulled away for other things. So after a few years with that version of the band, we were called Acoustic Soul. The drummer left to go on tour with like a big deal blues performer. So they got on the road. So we brought in a new drummer. And then the guitar player, his girlfriend got a modeling contract in New York City. So the two of them left. And then I tried to bring more people into the band. And it was just like trying to keep the work. And I'd have to learn their songs because they would leave and those would be popular songs. So I started learning all these new songs. And I just wanted to keep working, playing music. And eventually Jeremiah left. So I had this chance to sort of reinvent the group, Acoustic Soul. And I was looking for like a cool way to do it. And what I ended up on was I met this girl. Her name was Nina DiGregorio. And Nina, we were playing a corporate party at the Palms. And there was a group outside of these pretty girls who were playing violin. But they were playing like rock music on violin. And I was like, what? Where are you guys getting these arrangements from? You can't just pick up music for 4 violin players and it's like Led Zeppelin, And this girl was like, oh, she writes all of our music for us, the arrangements. And that was Nina. So I approached Nina and I was like, hey, do you want to be my lead guitar player? And she's like, what? And I was like, yeah. And I kind of told her, like, we do all requests. And I think it might be really cool to have a featured violinist playing all the lead guitar parts with like pedals and stuff. She was like, cool, I'm down. So we started playing. And at the time, that drummer, the new drummer that I had, turns out was the drummer for Rick James. So his name's Lannis Hughes, and he's the guy you hear on like Super Freak and all that stuff.
Really?
So we had Lannis on drums.
Tight.
Then we had me. And then we have this cute little blonde girl who's this phenom on a violin. And I was like, we need something else, like a piano player or somebody who could be like clutch. And at the time, she was like, oh, my boyfriend, he plays piano, guitar, and bass and sings a little bit. I was like, what? Why have you been hiding this from us? So they're not together anymore. They're still friends, but he joined the band. His name is Dave King. And Dave was like a golden goose for us, depending on what the song needed, he would just be able to play it, like piano, guitar, bass, like we had harmonies. So there's only 4 of us in the band. And now we were playing, like, the sound that we were coming out with was so much bigger than what you'd see on stage, And we played a bunch of shows, but eventually O'Shea's Casino, old school O'Shea's.
R.I.P. Yeah.
Yeah, but remember it was like really gross, but like in like an awesome way.
It's well put. That's well put.
O'Shea's hired us. The girl who at the time was like the manager wanted us there as like the house band. So we were there like 4 days a week.
And so this was like your first big strip gig?
Yeah, we were there 4 days a week, and we were like, I don't understand what it was about that venue or where it was placed or us or what, but we were like a phenomenon in that room.
Dude, anytime I talk to older generation about their party stories in Vegas, it always revolves around O'Shea's. Always, it's always the weird stories and the weird hangouts, and they always bring up like the griminess of it as well.
Yeah. Super grimy, super cheap to drink there, like beer pong tournaments every night. Like there was a tattoo shop there, Vince Neil's tattoo shop, and we played in this little tiny room. If you go online and you look up Acoustic Soul playing Freebird, there's a video. I'm wearing like a turquoise tie. It was shot by the audience. It's on a Wednesday night, and it's packed. And we played Freebird, we did the whole guitar solo on the violin, and we had like this crazy standing ovation at the end of the song. And that was a Wednesday. Like nothing was going on in town. Just this random. That was like what it was like for us in that room. It was weird.
That's awesome. And hold on. And so just so I have the timeline correct, what year is this around? Like
towards 2011. No, it's a little earlier than that. Maybe like 2010.
Okay. So since you've got to Vegas in 2002 to 2010, so for about 8 years, you were just out grinding and you're bouncing around doing different experimentation things between, karaoke, and then you became the karaoke guy through the guitar. And a few residencies, and then you're here. Okay.
Yeah, and then we kept getting shows, and I never used a booking agent because I didn't want to be beholden to one person, and also I felt like I wanted to do my own hustling, and then the band could split everything equally money wise. But it was hard because that kept us out of a lot of the bigger shows, honestly. Like the better paying bigger shows would only go through agents. So sometimes I would get real close and then they'd be like, no, sorry, like we have to call this guy. And I'd call that guy, and that guy wouldn't want to talk to me because he has his own invested interest that he wants to put in that room, And it was happening a lot. But we were working, so I was just doing it myself. So I have a younger brother. He's like 8 years younger than me. And he kind of wanted to help a little bit. And he's very like business savvy. His name's Evan. And Evan went to, at the time, Roadrunner. And he met with the owners because we wanted to start building a following in town. Even if it meant like taking a pay cut, So my brother went to Roadrunner and talked to the owner, and they had us every Tuesday night. We were at Roadrunner on 215 in Flamingo, which is now Parkway Tavern.
Yeah, we actually, I'm very familiar with that area in college. Since I told you this before too, I was in a Jewish fraternity, and a lot of college people used to throw parties there all the time.
That was the spot. Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, so we went in there, we were there every Tuesday night. And then on Wednesday night, we're at the Roadrunner on Eastern and 215, which I think is at PT's now.
Mm-hmm.
But we did that every Tuesday and Wednesday, and it wasn't for like crazy money, but we were doing it because we wanted to build a following on both ends of town. And we did. People were showing up every week to see us play there. And they request songs and throw tip money at us, and it was really fun. But eventually that ended, and it was weird. It ended right around the time where we got an offer to play at Cabo Wabo, which was at the Planet Hollywood Casino. So we were there every Saturday night for about like 9 or 10 months. And they got new management came in, and one night we walked in and we were supposed to play, and they said, "Oh, sorry, we forgot to tell you guys, like, we booked dueling pianos instead now." It was such a weird, like, Sammy Hagar's Cabo Wabo. Now there's like 2 pianos in the room. It was so weird. And so we had nothing to do. So we were like, let's go see what other bands are doing around here. So we went to the Paris and we were hanging out, and there was a guy who was a big deal in entertainment in Vegas who sort of knew me through my mom. It's kind of a weird story. My mom is the head of marketing for Nevada Ballet. So she's really interconnected with like a lot of stuff that's going on in town. So he came over to me and said, like, aren't you supposed to be playing tonight? And I said, well, actually, this is what happened. And I kind of explained it to him. And he said, well, let me give you a call on Monday. I might have something new for you. So Monday he called me and he said, we have this little lounge inside of Planet Hollywood Casino that we've only been booking like duos at. And he said, I think we want to try a band there. And he was like, why don't we have you guys play there like 5 nights a week? And we'll give you a contract for at least like the next 3 months. And I was like, yeah, okay. Up until that point, what we had done was I would book us a different show at a different place each night of the week. So if we were playing 5 nights a week and one show canceled, it was okay. We just have to fill that one night. The other 4 nights of the week, we were still playing in other places. This was the first time where one place wanted us, 5 nights a week.
Like a soul residency type thing where you see typically now with a lot of these electronic DJs.
Yeah, exactly. So I was nervous because I was like, well, what if they get rid of us? Like, we don't have anything backing us up, but we had to take it. It was the best deal that I had ever been offered. And, it was steady. 5 nights a week from 9 p.m. to like 1 o'clock in the morning. The 4 of us, great money. They were going to put our posters all around the Planet Hollywood. We were on the marquee. And originally, they were going to sort of, he made it seem like they were going to sort of help us, move on to bigger and better things, and they were going to shape us a little bit because we were so unique and we had a following, we were getting press and all this stuff. So after 3 months were over, they redid a contract. They wanted us there for another year. You still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
My thing just...
Did you lose the...
I lost the video.
Uh-oh. I can still see you, though.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. Keep talking.
You can go ahead. You're good. There's like a light shining on you, but I can still see you.
Yeah, I'll do this. So we ended up playing there for a year, and 5 nights a week for a year, and it was amazing. And then out of nowhere, they told us they got rid of us. We were supposed to be there on a Wednesday night, and on Monday we got an email saying, "Don't come in this Wednesday night. We're done with you guys." Not for they just decided they wanted to try something new, but it was like,
And did they cut you? This was in the middle of your contract?
No, so essentially it was like right at the end of our contract.
Okay.
So they were talking about renewing for another year, which was weird. I heard it not just through the people who worked there that loved us, but I heard it through my mom, who ran into that guy, and he was like, yeah, we're gonna renew their contract for another year, and it didn't happen. It's crazy. So then the band was out of business, right? We went from 5 nights a week for a year to nothing. And of course, my band members immediately jumped on whatever other opportunities they had. So it was like all of a sudden I lost my band. And I didn't know what to do. And this is around 2012. And
Okay.
so at the time, it's weird. My professional life, horrible, right? Horrible. Personal life, amazing.
Completely flip-flopped on it.
Yeah. I met a girl. She was awesome. We moved in together and we lived in an apartment and trying to figure out what to do with my music. I started playing like teaching music, like at different schools and stuff like that, and camps and things like that. And I didn't know what to do. It was, again, I got to a point where like, what's going on? What are we going to do? And then we found out, so New Year's Eve, like I was thinking about proposing, and then I chickened out. And then, so I had this ring, and then January 3rd, she wakes me up and says, "Hey, I'm pregnant."
Oh, bombshell.
I was like, "What?" First I thought like, my mom's going to be so mad at me.
She's going to have the Jewish mother guilt.
And I realized like, I'm an adult. Like we've been in a relationship for like a year. I was going to propose anyway. Like my mom's not going to be mad. My mom did, however, like propose to her. Like my mom's like, "You should get married. You guys should get married." We didn't do that. So it became all about, let's get into a house because we were in an apartment, and let's get new cars because our cars weren't child friendly at all. I had like a bright yellow Mustang, 2-door. She had a Jeep with like no roof or window.
Two complete opposites.
Her Jeep was basically like a ride at Disney, more of like a ride than a car, you know. But while all that was going on, I was freaking out because I'm going to have a baby. I get a phone call from this guy who used to work, I guess his bartender used to work at the Rainbow Bar, which was right across the street from the Hard Rock Hotel.
Okay.
And he had been a bartender there, and when I used to play there, like my band, Old Acoustic Soul, was the only house band they ever had at Rainbow Bar. So we were there every Tuesday night for like 6 months or something. And they had this place inside of the Hard Rock Hotel called Ainsworth. And Ainsworth it was like this, it used to be wasted space. So it was like, you could probably fit 150 people in there, but they'd be a real tight squeeze, you know? But cool, like really cool, like black leather sofas, real loungy. Everything was like restoration hardware, like lamps. And they said, "Hey, look, like our brand is like DJs. Because in New York City, if you go to an Ainsworth, it's huge. It's like a big club.
Okay.
But here, the owners bought this little venue, and they want us to have DJs here. And he was like, it's not working really, you know? So he was like, I want you to be here and play just you by yourself. And I never really played solo by myself like that, like not like that when he was asking. Right. And he was like, look, we'll pay you what we pay the DJ.
In.
I didn't know what that was, but I was like, yeah, okay. He was like, all right, so we want you here Thursdays and Friday nights from like 8 to midnight or 8 to 11. Yeah, 8 to 11. And he was like, and if we want you to keep going, we'll pay you overtime, but we'll let you know. And I was like, all right. So I come in there by myself, I'd set up, and he was really smart. He was like, you know what? Don't even worry about getting people in here. He was like, I'll make sure this place is packed. So what he would do was like, he would offer like strippers like free dinner before they would go to work. So they would come in there and they'd eat dinner, and I would start playing to a room full of like off-duty strippers, and people would be walking by and be like, oh, look at all those hot girls in there, and just start like filling the room.
It's
And
so
then
smart. That's like exactly what they do at the nightclubs that I work at, where they fill up the tables with comp and it gets the guys to spend more. It's exactly the same thing. It's
so
funny.
crazy, right? But he smart, right? So like, and then those girls eventually would get up and leave, and the place would be packed, and people would be partying and stuff all night. The first weekend I was there was during the AVN Awards, so it was like all the porn star people and celebrities, and like it was packed anyway. They, so I told the crowd, I was like, listen, like as long as you keep throwing money at me and requests, I won't take a break. I'll play whatever you guys want to hear. I'll do this for you. I'll just keep playing. Is it a deal? Let's do this, you know? And like I made a joke. If I run out of songs, then I'll just drink heavily for like 25 minutes. I'll cry. I'll come back and play more music. And they're like, yeah. So I ended up playing from 8 p.m. to 4 o'clock in the morning with no breaks.
Wow, 8
Song,
hours. That's
song.
double your normal length.
Weird, right? Too, like song after song, no break, no like people were dancing and loving it. I did that 2 nights in a row. And Ainsworth, the owners, who they had said they were gonna pay me overtime, they did, but they were like, "That's the last time we're gonna do this."
Oh.
Like, we didn't know you'd go like 5 hours over, so they were like, "From now on, if you want to do that, take tips. That's totally cool. Go for it." But like, you know, like that's on you. It was cool, and so I ended up in Ainsworth. I was there every Thursday and Friday night for about a year and a half. And it was perfect. It was like right before my daughter was born. And I had all, good money coming in from there. And I was, that show alone, I met and played for tons of celebrities. I have story after story after story of like these crazy like celebrity like things where I was playing
Okay.
like Dennis Rodman came in one night and I was singing and playing guitar and he like took the microphone and he was singing and I was playing guitar and then he was like just holding there was like some girl dancing up on him so he just like would hold the microphone in front of my face. He was
That's
like
a funny story. That's a funny experience.
greatest mic stand ever, Dennis Rodman. Or like like one night Justin Bieber came in there, but nobody knew who he was. It was after everyone had left. He just wanted to tinker around on the guitar. Cuba Gooding Jr. was like dancing up on me and like really wasted. And it's weird because like nobody knew who he was. I was singing "Let's Get It On" and like he was wearing like a fisherman's cap, like a wife beater, like board shorts and like flip flops. And he was like, yeah, yeah. And he was like getting in my face while I was singing "Let's Get It On." And then he left and I made a joke to the crowd, like, what the hell just happened? What was that? And then he came back in the room and he threw his hat off. And that was when I was like, oh, it's Cuba Gooding Jr. Weird.
It's those very like small intimate moments and venues where people start to act like their true self and they don't have to hide behind a mask like a lot of these famous people.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and maybe one of the coolest things that happened was the band The Who.
Okay.
After they played, they came into my show and Pete Townsend asked if I could play one of their songs. And I had never, my band played Baba O'Reilly because we had the violin player, but I never played like a solo version of it. So I just did it. I just attempted it and I killed it. They gave me a standing ovation and ended up in the Norm section of the newspaper. It's like a cool, like, The Who. Like, yeah, I sang one of their songs in front of them, Kid Rock sang with me one time. Like, it's got like weird stories. Pink got up and sang with me. Like, it was crazy. But through all that stuff, I really wasn't playing my own music. Like, it's kind of crazy. And then my daughter was born and we got a house. We got a nice new house and cars. We got adult cars. I have a daddy car now. And continued to play music. After that Ainsworth gig ended, I was playing just random shows solo. And that was when I ended up playing like 3 shows a day for a couple months. It was like the Hard Rock Cafe on the Strip.
Uh-huh.
And I was playing at Born and Raised. They had like a brunch thing.
Yeah.
And I was playing at Ainsworth later at night. And then I lost my voice for a while, and that was crazy.
Yeah, that you must have been overloading yourself 3 days a week. The voice can only do so much.
I thought I was like Superman. Like, I could do anything. But
yeah, I mean, if you got Dennis Rodman singing with you, you definitely are Superman.
It was like crazy. But yeah, so I lost my my voice, and that time period when I wasn't performing was the most insane in my entire life. Like, I'd have dreams about being able to like perform for people, and I didn't know if it would ever come back. You know, it was crazy. It was really scary.
Frightening. That's really frightening from everything that you've done and the consistent changes throughout your life.
I mean, it was my thing, like to be able to sing and play guitar for people. And also like this Superman thing, because I do have this, it's kind of like a nickname sort of thing that followed me around a little. It came from the fact that I could remember all the words to all these songs and the chords. Like, I had amazing musicians in my bands who were like, how are you doing this? And I was like, I don't know how I'm doing this. And also, I'm really good at like taking a song and like making it my own and regurgitating it, I guess, in a way that's like palatable for people. So like, for instance, like I do a version of Heartless by Kanye West. And there was a girl who would come to every show and request it all the time. That was like her favorite song, but she had never heard the actual real song. And she said one day she came to a show and was like, I heard the song. She was like, I was at the dentist's office and it played on the radio. She was like, it's horrible. I hate that song. She was like, your version is so amazing. I can't believe it. I was like, oh, that's cool, you know. But through all that stuff, it's funny to see like kind of where things are now for me.
Mm-hmm.
So right before, so the end of last year, I found out that I was having a son. Right?
Congratulations. I could hear him for a little bit in the background. A little bit.
Likes to be known. So I was having a baby, and I was playing music certain places with my band, kind of a newer version of my band. We're called the Hal Savar Band because I couldn't think of anything cooler.
Hey, that's the more official way. It's better than Hal Savar and Friends or Hal Savar and Others.
Right. And also played some solo gigs here and there, but nothing really steady. And also, how do I put this? The music scene in Vegas is tricky, and it was changing, especially because, well, here's what happened. This is my theory. I might be wrong, but I think this is what happened. First thing that happened is DJs became a huge deal.
Yep, electronic music, and that's due to EDC moving over here.
Right. So while all that's happening, they start expanding areas where they can have DJs and shrinking areas that have live music. And it also for them, you know, if they can get like an amateur DJ who's new to things, that's much more cost effective than hiring like a band or a musician to them, you know, in the casinos.
Correct.
Also, while that's happening, I think what's going on is that when I first moved here, there were entertainment directors who that was their whole job. There's like a science behind it. They knew what music and what people to put where, and that would help gambling in these areas and like drinking and whatever. Then I think what happened over time is casinos realized like they could absolve that position just by giving those duties to like a food and beverage manager.
So it's all becoming just like cutting costs and efficiency.
Right. And what's happened is, so now the guy who's in charge of the entertainment for this giant casino is a bartender who's been promoted over and over and over and over and over. And now, you know, he's the food and beverage manager slash entertainment director. And he's just putting in the things that he likes. There's no science to it. And if he has a friend who's in a band, well, of course, like he's going to use them, you know. So that happens, right?
Correct.
Then I believe it was like last summer or the summer before, they start all these like big deal strip shows like Jersey Boys and the $1 Million Quartet, things like that started shutting down. And when those closed down, all of a sudden there were thousands of musicians in Vegas who had been working those shows. That was like their bread and butter, who were now out of work. So the first thing all those musicians did was create these cookie cutter cover bands.
Oh, they're returning right back to the beginning.
Right. They like flood the market with it. So what happened is like the people who are in charge of booking entertainment now are like, oh, well, we have a million options. So we don't really have to back one particular group. We can have a different group every night and have a different crowd in here every night. So instead of giving you like a 3-month contract like they would and try to like really build with you, they're just rotating talent through. Unless you're lucky and you meet like a really good booking agent or entertainment director who wants to like build that room, you know,
right.
and sees the potential of what you're doing. Otherwise, it's just every night something different. And so I started seeing my money was suffering and my friends, and I started getting a little disillusioned with, you know, the entertainment cover band business thing. To go out and play music, and I would kill it. I would put my heart and soul into it, and then at the end of my songs, you look up and people are like on their phones. They're just there to drink. Like music, they're not promoting those places as spots to see music. People are there drinking. They're there for drinking and gambling. Music is like, oh, look, there's music here, you know, but it's not what they're there for. So the marketing, everything's all like been flipped around, right? So a New Year's resolution was, I want to be less self-serving, and I want to see if I can help the scene locally.
Okay.
And other people too, musicians and artists and things like that, because I want more of that stuff in my life. It's also inspiring to me. And so I continue to try to get myself gigs. And one of the places I called was the Artisan Hotel. So I called the Artisan up and they were like, well, we just have DJs right now. And one night we have like a jazz night. I was like, DJs? And I was like, blah, blah, blah. And I started mouthing off about DJs. like a few minutes. And they're like, oh, okay, well, what would you do instead? And I was like, well, I got some ideas. So they were like, write us a business proposal and we'll talk about it. So I was like, okay. So what I proposed was, and it went through, was every Wednesday night, I would host and organize a all original music night called Homegrown Showcase.
I like that.
And I would bring in like 6 to 10 artists to perform and give them like 4 original songs each, sometimes 5. And they could talk about kind of the inspiration behind the songs and like why they wrote them. And it turned out to be such a cool vibe. Like, and it's at the Artisan, which is really cool too.
The Artisan's a really, really cool hotel. It's really cool.
So we did that every Wednesday. And then that started in February. And then every Thursday, we would do Crossroads, which is a blues funk jam. So it'd be like the most amazing players in town would show up and jam, like on funk and blues. So like people, it'd be crazy because like, you know, we'd start the night, I'd play a couple blues songs with the band, and then they'd be like, okay, I look at the list and say, so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so. and they'd get up there and be like, hey, nice to meet you, nice to meet you. And all of a sudden they'd be playing like the most ridiculous funk and blues music. You just be like, they're so good, you know? So we're doing that every Thursday. Friday nights, I was booking separate like solo and duo acts to play in there. And same thing on Saturday nights. They would either have me there taking requests, or they would just, if I couldn't be there, they would have me booking like other people to do stuff. And then one Sunday every month, we would put on an art and music event called One Crazy Happy Hour, which basically is kind of like a mini First Friday. Like it'd be happy hour on food and drinks, free pink box donuts. We have like 12 different music acts, and we'd have like 12 artists who would showcase and sell their artwork, their jewelry, sculptures, paintings, all that stuff. And so we did that the last Sunday of the month, and it was going awesome. And my brother and I were going to start a business for local arts, and I was playing also at the Mount Charleston Retreat, which has new owners.
Okay.
So playing at the retreat, playing at the Artisan. Sometimes my band was getting booked to play out of town in Laughlin or Mesquite. So we would spend a weekend out there and play some music and come back. I was writing new music and starting to record the new stuff because I want to start pushing my original music again.
I think that's a smart idea.
It's kind of like that's where I really want to be, you know? So all this stuff is happening, and then COVID-19 hits, and every place that I'm playing at cancels. So, and my fiance, she's a cocktail waitress at casino. So she's out of work, I'm out of work, we're home with the kids. They send my daughter home from school. She used to be like basically remote schooled. So it's
you go from musician to homeschool teacher.
Yeah. And it was crazy because it happens all at once. And I started to feel before it happened like, wow, like I'm starting to change things and make a difference. And like, this is really amazing. We're creating a scene. And then it's like, everything was like, hold up.
Damn.
Stopped everything. So my brother and I continue to work on the art and music platform. And we're like this close to being able to launch it. What it is the idea is that it's, you can sponsor an artist, a musician, a dancer, photographer, somebody's a podcast, anything that's not just business, you know, that they could use help with anything, materials, equipment, stuff like that. Family, friends, fans, they can sponsor you for a reoccurring sponsorship.
Okay, and this is an app or a website?
So we're creating it. We want to make it an app. Right now it isn't even really live yet.
Okay.
It's called LOCLART, LOCLART.
Okay.
And so what it is like, so if I sponsored you, so it'd be like $22 a month, you get $10 a month out of that sponsorship. The rest goes towards like building the app and like the other stuff that we're trying to do. But the person that's sponsoring you, they get deals on food and drinks around town at like bars and restaurants. They get invites to like special VIP art and music events. And also we basically like once a month, everybody gets a art box. They can win an art box, which is like a box full of like swag from local artists, and everybody just donates like one item or something in there, and then this person will win like a box of art.
Yeah, this it sounds like. Have you ever heard of a Patreon? It sounds similar to Patreon, but more localized, and it's like it pertains to all of the different venues that the artist is playing at.
Yeah, my family's. You can't see it, but there's a baby right here. He's really cute. If you get him close enough, he'll show up on.
Oh, for the viewers, yeah, I can see it if people are watching. Oh,
Memphis Savar.
Oh,
Yeah, he's cute, right?
hi.
Hi. Hey, buddy. Yeah, so yeah, we just wanted a way to make it really easy for people to support like their local art and music scene, their artists, and they would get something great out of it. But it's so easy just to like now those people look, if you're an artist and you can get 10 people to sponsor you every month, by the end of the year, you're making $1,200 reoccurring every month for your art, for whatever you want to do with it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like gas money, materials, that stuff costs money, you know, like and hopefully then artists and musicians can do what they should be doing, which is creating.
Exactly. Yeah. It sounds like just through all of the struggles and the different pivots, it's you've gone from a creator and then to a cover artist. Now you're almost like an event manager, and now it's like a creator in an art form. So it's a transition multiple times. And I could tell you'd rather just work on your original music, call it a day.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny, like I run out of time, you know, and I'll be like, man, I just want to work on like these songs and stuff. But it's funny, like when, like around Mother's Day, I had a friend say, like, "Hey, could you write a song about moms for me?" I was like, "Sure." I was like, "Sure." So I whipped up this song super fast, played it for my family. They were like, "I don't know, not one of your best, you know." But I sent it to her, and I was like really insecure about it. And she wrote me back and was like, "Amazing, love it, so good." And then I had nothing to do with it, but I wanted people to hear it. So I just posted on social media and said, like, can everybody send me like pictures with their moms or videos with your kids, stuff like that? And I got overwhelming number of like people just sending me stuff.
Oh, wow.
And I turned it into like a little music video with my song. And I got like all these messages from like moms who are like, "Thank you so much. I was crying all morning watching this video." Like, oh, you're welcome. So that was cool. That was cool. But yeah, I love original music and I miss hearing it. I've been doing these like weekly live streams.
Yeah, that's literally the popular thing everyone's doing. Insomniac, who does EDC, kind of started that trend, and now DJs are doing it, and people are moving to Twitch. And it's cool that you could actually do a live band. I watched you last Thursday. It was really cool.
Last Thursday was cool. Yeah, it's weird because it's like I sort of was like hesitant about it for a while, so I jumped on it kind of late. And the first couple live streams that I did were crazy. Like I had a lot of viewers, and they were tipping me and requesting songs. And then I was like, well, I want to also bring in other artists and musicians and like talk to them, you know, and like let them feature what they're doing too. So that was cool. And I started doing that. And so I've been kind of all over the place with it. This Thursday, super crazy. We're going to have my friends are horse acrobatists.
What?
They're like, if you get a chance, Gladius the show, and that's their show, and they have a ranch here in Vegas on like the north side of town, and we used to like hang out there and do bonfires, and like I'd play guitar and stuff, and they have these giant horses. They're like Clydesdale-sized horses, and they put on a show. So I asked if they could maybe rehearse their show live stream, like while we do this thing on Thursday, tomorrow. So they were like, yeah, okay. So they're going to do their stuff. And then I have a friend from, I went to high school with in Ohio. She now lives in Nashville. And her whole thing is like, she goes to people's events and they hire her to paint like live at their event. She's this real pretty blonde girl. She shows up, she sets up an easel. She's in like a cocktail dress or a cute dress, and she just paints for like 2-3 hours.
Wow.
And creates like these amazing works of art. So she's gonna come on and paint live, and then I have 4 other original songwriter guitar players, 3 girls and a guy. Dina
Yeah,
Sampson.
you're literally becoming an event organizer.
It's weird.
It's very
So
cool to see.
we're doing this live stream. I'm gonna play some songs too and ask him a couple weird questions about like music in Vegas and original music and stuff like that. And yeah, it should be interesting.
Yeah,
And
I need to put you in touch with one of my previous guests. His name is Rex, and he's a music journalist for this company downtown called For the Culture. And he goes around and he interviews the company itself. They interview they've been mostly rappers, but they also do painters and artists of different forms, and they also throw events as well. Kind of this similar thing that you do, but it's for downtown, and it's been more R&B, hip hop, rap oriented. So I think I should. And their whole idea behind it is local music culture as well with artists. So it's like same thing you're doing, but just more live.
yeah, that's incredible. I need people like that. I need to talk to more people like that. So Artisan called me and they want to have a One Crazy Happy Hour June 28th. And so but they also wanted to so they wanted to do our normal One Crazy Happy Hour, but also have bands playing outside on their patio.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been organizing this whole thing. So there'll be 5 bands outside. There'll be 8 acoustic acts inside, artists and free donuts and half off on food and drinks. All the artists on June 28th from like 7 to 11. And I'm excited about it, but also a little nervous. Like,
Are you nervous because of the whole COVID pandemic, or nervous to return to playing again?
Mainly for the COVID thing. I'm like dying to play music for people live, you know, and like it's very weird to say, but I would put my own health at risk to play music, which I've done in the past, you know, like it's like
it's something you love. It's something you're passionate about, and people are already beginning to do it now. As you've seen, Vegas is starting to come back, and they have a little bit more demand than they expected. And the local culture you could see is very just kind of fed up with being at home, and people are just going out and doing anything. Like I've been to the park more times in the last month than I had my entire life.
Yeah, we started going on like family walks, and like it's beautiful outside, you know. We just got to get out of the house. It's crazy, like, because in a way this whole thing was scary, but it was like this thing we'll always remember, this big pause where life just like sort of stopped. And for me it was an amazing opportunity to like, I had a new baby in the house while this was going on. So like, how many dads get to spend 24 hours a day with their newborn babies? See them go from like just a baby to like now he's crawling around and little personality and stuff, and you know, being able to hang out with my family without really having concern of like, oh, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, you know, and just be there in the moment has been like incredible, you know, something that I don't think I'll ever forget. So it's also taught me a lot, you know, about what's important, what's really important, you know.
Yeah. I call COVID the giant reset. It's everyone's reeling a lot of routines that aren't, or maybe broken, a lot of procedures that maybe don't need to be, and people are starting to reinvent themselves, with myself included.
Yeah, I mean it's funny. Like I love like live music and art and culture, and there hasn't been a really good way to get in there and have that stuff because of this, right? Now everything's starting to slowly open again, and I feel like now's a good time. I hope that some of the BS, some of the political BS from before all this went down.
Hmm.
And I don't mean like political BS, like presidential,
Yeah, you're talking about on like a local level.
on a local level. Yeah, I hope that some of that stuff people realize like how important like live music and art and things like that are now. Whereas like I felt like it was becoming something that people were taking for granted
Yep.
because it was there and it was always there. You think, oh, it'll always be there, you know? But then to not have it, um, man, because it's just like it changes everything, you know?
It's true. All my friends have been talking about that they're never going to say no to going out ever again after being stuck at home for so long. And a lot of people are looking also into like different music, myself included. It's just like
Yeah.
people start reconsidering really what's important and what they're interested in.
Like I love all music. I legitimately do. I know sometimes when people say that and they're totally lying. You know, like I really love all music. I really really enjoy it, and in any of its art forms. But that being said, I've become completely disinterested in kind of the electronic DJ EDC thing over the last like few years because one, it's become like a competition for me, right? With my work. But two, like I think it makes it too easy for some people. Where like I love music festivals. And my fiance and I went to Bottle Rock Music Festival. That was the last one we went to, which is in Napa Valley. So it's 3 days of music, and it's like all different types of stuff. Like Halsey was there, Bruno Mars was there, Earth, Wind, and Fire was there.
Ooh, yeah.
Incubus was playing. Like it was amazing, right? So Snoop Dogg was there, he was awesome, and the Chainsmokers were there. And I was like, oh, let's check out the Chainsmokers. Like, I want to see them. I was like, because they just got this $1 million contract in Vegas to be like the main DJs, you know, over at, what was it, like Trist or something?
XS, yeah, at Win.
Yeah, so I was like, well, let's check them out. I want to see like what they're doing live, you know? So we walked over to the stage, and it literally was like, you know, there's two guys in Chainsmokers. So one guy's standing on the right side of the stage. He never looks up at the crowd. He's got his headphones on, and he's like pushing buttons the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other guy, he's like kind of like the hype man. So he's got a microphone. I can't even tell if it's on. And they're not even playing their songs. They're playing mixes of songs that you'd hear like clubs or whatever.
Yeah, that's how most club music is.
Right. And then, but you know, they had like a couple hit songs. Like, so I thought maybe they'd play one. They didn't. They're playing like that, all that stuff, like, you know, like they hear at clubs. And then every now and then he would like sing some of the songs, but like really poorly. So you see him be like, mouth the words and be like, bulletproof, nothing. And it was awful. It was so bad. I was like, I kept looking at the crowd and I was like, what is this? This is so insane. Especially after seeing like Incubus and Bruno Mars. And like people were like, Incubus was like, they put on an amazing show. Like they're playing all the instruments. Bruno Mars puts on an amazing show. I was like, man, this is like a real show, you know? Like, but this was like crazy. I was like, what is happening?
That's the EDM, the electronic culture is it's very different from everything else, dependent on how the crowd is, because a lot of people are either really fucked up or on drugs. So then they're influenced by pretty much anything. The DJ could literally raise his hand and everyone's like, "Whoa, let's go!" Yeah, and
I love when people get excited or having a good time. But like, I just feel like, man, it should still be. Live music should still be viable and like be something, because this is the thing, and I always tell people this is why I personally think live music is better than like the DJ electronic thing, because to me there's like a danger there that they're going to go off the rails. They can make a mistake. They're playing it live, right? They're not just like, it's also Vegas has some cover bands that use tracks. I'm not like a fan of tracks for the same reason, because it's like you got a band up there playing. Some of them are playing, but then all of a sudden you'll hear instruments that aren't up there, like vocals, and you'll
Oh,
hear.
so they're playing through sound equipment, like the song in the background, like they're kind of covering it.
I call it like rock star karaoke. Like the band is plugged in and they're playing, but they're playing over tracks of songs.
Yeah, it's like what singers do.
So they can get as close to like the original
Mm-hmm.
possible. Some bands go even further than that. They even have the vocal tracks on it. And they're like singing with the vocal. So it's essentially like you're just playing the song that's on the radio, pretending to play over it, or you're playing with it. I don't know. I'd rather hear somebody take a song and make it their own and be playing
Correct.
live and be like, man, they could mess up. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I think like music is probably one of the biggest kind of people who just goes through different cycles all the time. And electronic music, I think it's here to stay, but there's going to be different variations of it. But at least through like my friend group and like my generation, you see a lot of people are starting to turn back to live music because they're kind of bored with the electronic scene and they're now into, you know, their later 20s or early 30s and they want culture and they want to have an experience.
Right.
So I think what you're pivoting to is something that, you know, you've been used to. You've been pivoting multiple times, but I think it is a correct route, especially tapping into the local Las Vegas scene. Because one thing I've been saying about COVID is that a lot of these cities and towns are going to resort back to localism, and everyone's going to start supporting local bands and local events, local places to eat, restaurants, bars, whatever the case is. So I think that what you're doing on June 29th is a good idea and a great start.
I'm excited. I'm super excited about it. Like, I just want I want people to feel like there's a community. Like, that was the main thing for us starting that local art business, is that when you would talk to anybody about like the Las Vegas culture, they'd be like, what culture? There's no like Las Vegas culture. There's no music scene. It's here though. You just have to find it.
Yep.
It's just interesting that like you go to like LA or Austin, Texas, or New York City, and these bigger cities that are older and more established, they have these real, like, there's a culture, there's like a scene there and like a community. And we, for some reason, haven't been able to do that here.
Yeah, it's tough a little bit because you're always competing with the Strip, who has the best talent of hip hop, R&B, and electronic music, and a lot of locals get persuaded to go down there with free entry, free drinks. And so it's like, why would I go to a local bar when I can go see Calvin Harris for free and get barraged with unlimited drinks in the meantime? So you are competing with that, but you're just waiting more so for the locals to either fizzle out and get tired of it, or to get turned on to some other direction.
Yeah, hopefully.
It'll come. I think it's the right move. It's something that I've been looking towards as well. Like I've worked in the nightclub industry now for 5 years, and that's where the money's made. But I don't ever go onto the Strip whenever I'm not working. I always go downtown. That was always like my place to go down to, because I'm looking for culture and people to relate to and an experience. And when you go onto the Strip, it's almost the same experience over and over again. I get it that if you're a tourist, then it's always going to be a different variable because you're staying at different hotels, different casinos. It's kind of new all over. But when you're a local, it's like the casinos aren't going anywhere. And so you have to look outwards to find different experiences.
Yeah. I mean, Vegas is a weird town, right? Because where they say we're the entertainment capital of the world. But then I don't feel like, at least on the ground level, I don't feel like they take care of their entertainers very well. Like, for instance, this is the thing that, like, we have 88,000 gig workers in Nevada.
Jesus.
And Nevada was the last state that opened up the application for unemployment to gig workers.
I saw that. It was just like a few weeks ago.
Yeah, that's weird, right? Like that's
Mm-hmm.
we have the most gig workers in one state, and we were the last state to open up unemployment for those people. Like that's crazy, you know? Like, and I applied immediately, like I was ready at midnight, you know, and I got approved, but I haven't seen a penny yet, nothing. So
Yeah.
like I'm like I'm running on fumes. My bank account looks scary, but you know, it's weird. Like you'd think like let's take care of I bumped into a guy. I was playing a show at the East Side Cannery
Mm-hmm.
Hotel, and I got done playing, and he kind of like walked over. He was a little older, and he said, "Hey man," he was like, "I used to play here when they first opened," and he was like, "And I played in town. I'm a keyboard player, singer." I was like, "Oh, cool." And he was like, "It was great." He was like, "Back when I started playing here," he was like, "it was at the end of like the mob was still in town." He was like, "And they took care of us." Like, he was like, "I would play like two shows a weekend and make like $1,200 to $1,500." I was like, "What?" I was like, "Oh my
Yeah,
god!"
that's what happens with saturation is the money starts to dry up a little bit and it doesn't get dispersed as much around,
Yeah,
or it's at smaller amounts. But
crazy.
yeah, at the future, one thing I know for sure about Vegas is that it always reinvents itself through crisis. You know, there's always been so many different waves through Vegas. Like the early days is gambling and, you know, like kind of the prostitution kind of thing and like the devil's safe haven. And then it
Right,
was like a family oriented and like theme parks, and now it's and recently it's been the nightlife and day life and clubbing, electronic music, and now it's transitioning into sports and conventions. And so,
crazy.
yeah,
It's
so
crazy.
there's always different ways to reinvent yourself. And I like the direction that you're going in reinventing yourself that you've done multiple times.
It's funny because now like when we started doing that thing at the Artisan, I found out I started to be able to gauge kind of like where I was at in the scene, and like it's interesting. Like I'm versatile enough where I got the original music night, which I love. It's like
Mm-hmm. How many tracks do you have?
original music
Yeah.
that I've recorded.
Yeah.
Um, so my first album has 9 tracks on it, and then I recorded a second album in this home studio, and that has 14 songs on it.
Okay. Yeah. So 23. So you're pretty well adversed as far as being an original artist.
Yeah, and then I have some like new stuff now that I've been able to like start playing, you know, out some
Mm-hmm.
like, new originals. Like honestly, probably by the end of the year, I probably have enough material to I could record like a third album if I wanted to.
There you
Well,
go. That's the right way to go. Everyone has to find their originality, especially in Vegas, where people tend to kind of compete very hard for a finite amount of spots.
yeah, I had a conversation with somebody who's like really like deep seated in the music business, and they told me like, you know, what's crazy is like what I do with taking songs and doing them my way. That if it was maybe the 1960s, even the 1970s, I could have gotten famous just doing that.
Mhm.
Like Frank Sinatra, you know, like he only did it was his version of those songs, you know, like it was
Right.
about the performance of the songs. It's like saying like, yeah, you can get pizza at Pizza Hut, or you can get pizza at Trattoria, and it's probably going to be better pizza at Trattoria than Pizza Hut, you know? Like pizza's not just pizza. It's like, yeah, you can see cover bands all over the place, but
Hmm.
it's not necessarily like this guy could be better than this guy at these versions of songs. But it's not like that anymore, where like those people are becoming famous based off of cover songs. So for me, it's like I just keep thinking like the cover band thing is great. It pays my bills, but there's a roof on it, right?
Yep.
I can only get about here. The to take a gamble on myself and do my own music is the only way I could truly be successful. And it's scary because I'm getting older and you feel like, you know, is it past my time yet? You
Hmm.
know, like I don't really like to buy into like conventional like
Yeah,
BS.
it's all about the trial and error mindset. You got to at least try it. And how I see it is like whenever I'm on my deathbed at the end of the day, even though I say I'm never going to die and to try to live forever, if that day ever comes, you always think about the things that you didn't do, and so you don't want to live with those regrets. And
Right.
especially in the world today, where social media can change any brand in literally one tweet, one post, one anything, one event to change your entire life, you got to at least try.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, it's funny. Like I'm still learning. That's the thing, is to know that like I'm not this. I don't know everything. There are people that know more than me about stuff, and it's just. But I always remember. Uh, I took this like when I was in high school. I worked for Cutco Knives.
Everyone gets that right out of high school.
Yeah, they
Everyone gets
sell
that flyer.
door to door.
Yeah.
I was actually pretty good at it, but it's funny because there's some they I was their top seller, and so they sent me to like this conference. And I always remember something that this guy said. He said that it's really a numbers game. You know, like the more doors you knock on, the more knives you're going to sell. And I feel like that about anything. You know, like the more times I get in front of a crowd and perform my music, the more people get to hear it, and the more possibilities there are for some sort of success. And that's, I'm just going to keep on plugging
Yeah.
away.
It's the right mindset. It's about building a content library. That's like kind of what I do with the podcast. You just keep releasing stuff. One day, all you need is one person to change that entire scale, and then it goes exponential growth.
And
And
I think what I'm trying to do with the scene, with building a scene, is to try to like show people that like we need each other.
yeah,
You can't just hope that somebody will find you. You have to like champion each other. Like I I don't want to ever feel like to listen to another musician and feel like I don't want to feel threatened by their talent. I want to feel like, wow, like I want to own that with them and be like, this is so cool. We're on the same team. I want to see if I can help them, bring them further, and vice versa. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that's what a real community is. You know, it's like everybody. It's a revolution of people together being like, let's help each other out. You know, you have these little angels.
yeah. It's a bit.
You don't even know. Like they're all connectors, you know? So, I mean, I'll do what I can, and hopefully like that kind of karma will swing back my way, you know?
I think you're on the right track, my friend. It's about building camaraderie and about consumption, especially artistic consumption. It's not a zero-sum game, right? It's not like the presidency where there's only one person at the top. So everyone rises together, and if you build a community, then that just consumption increases, and everyone kind of rides the tide with it.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. And so I think this will be a good ending spot. We went through your incredible journey. I loved that. There's so many curveballs that are thrown your way, but I think success is all about not letting the curveball strike you out. It's about continuing and just
Right.
keep swinging. And so when I end my show, I always end with two questions for the person. And so the first question is: the year is 2030. What do you think the status of the Hal Savar Band looks like, and also local artists?
If I have it my way,
Yep.
I think that hopefully I'll be in a position where people will say like, this is the guy you want to talk to like help you further whatever you're doing. Like he really can like bring you further, so that you can do what you love to do, and you don't have to have a crummy day job, and do what you're passionate about. And on the same thing, without sounding like too narcissistic, I just want to be the best at what I'm doing. I want people to say like, look, this guy, like he defied probably the odds that were against him, and he ended up being successful doing what he loves to do. And so now, you know, in my mind, that's playing bigger shows, having my original music reaching a larger audience. You know, the music business has changed so much. I don't know what it's going to be like even, 10 years from now. But, it goes back to like the reason why I picked up a guitar to begin with, which is that I want to be able to entertain people and make them happy. And I want to be a voice for people, like that's why you write songs. So somebody can be like, oh, yeah, I totally get what he's saying, So, just successful, maybe, still be able to help other people to reach their dreams. That'd be a good place to be.
Very admirable. And the last question is, what does Las Vegas mean to you?
Las Vegas is my home. Las Vegas is home. It's my family. It's I'm very ADD. So like I like the shiny lights and the glittery, like I fall for that so hard. I love that there's so much possibility here, so much potential in Vegas. It's literally like, I feel like it's the last great frontier for entertainment and business where, you really, if you can find a way to mesh those things, there can be so much incredible like potential here, for greatness. So it's an amazing place. There's a lot of history in a tiny amount of time in this tiny area, and it's a small town, big city. I love it, and I'll live here forever if I could.
Small town, big city. I think that hits the nail directly on the head.
Yeah.
And where can everybody connect with you?
So they can find me at facebook.com/Hal Savar. Same thing with Instagram. If they ever wanted to check out my song menu, it's at halsongs.com. And there's also like a promo video on there. You can find me on YouTube. Just look up my name. I think I'm the only Hal Savar in the world. So Google me, you might find some stuff.
I guess that's one thing going for you in the entertainment world. If no one's copied your name, then you can at least stand out on that standpoint.
My weird name is okay.
I love this conversation, especially that the first hour and following you along. I felt like I was listening to an audiobook and not actually interviewing somebody.
I felt bad, like maybe I'm talking too much. I don't know.
Hey, I'm just here to facilitate the stories. That's kind of how I see it. But I enjoyed this a lot, and I hope everyone that was listening out there or viewing enjoyed this, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah,
Thank you, Hal.
Come find me.